All right, welcome back, baseball fans, to another elimination video. Today we're eliminating the Toronto Blue Jays. This is last year. I want to show you this first. I'm going to show you the last 2 years. This is the 2024 Blue Jays, 18 and 19, highly competitive when they should be getting knocked around by Baltimore and Boston and New York, but they're hanging right there with them. 18 and 19, scoring 166 runs, giving up 145. You could argue they were unlucky a year ago. Probably should have had a winning record. They were led by, look at some of these stats. Ed Kranepool at first base hit .388, but as a first baseman, no home runs, but 24 RBI in 37 games. That is such a bizarre line. Mike Lum continues his assault. He has had his 73 card for Toronto for eventually four straight years. Always produces, been to a few All-Star games. Cleon Jones comes to town, he struggles. Jim Brazil has this homer card in a small playing time, and he hit 10 of them, but just at 206. The pitching, Jerry Royce, who they would eventually trade, has a nice year, going 6-2. Let's go look now at the present stats of 2025. One-loss record is virtually the same. It's 18 and 19. The batting average went up, as did the ERA. So they went and made a trade to get Rich Coggins, his last good year, his only good year in 1973, and it produces nicely with a .356 average. Cleon Jones has a resurgence, up to .341, and you see Kranepool still doing well up top there. The averages are looking very good at the top. Mike Lum kind of slumped a little bit this year. Net runs are actually in the negative again. They're in the negative. They weren't in the negative a year ago. 139, 151. They moved on from Jerry Royce. He was part of the trade that got him Rich Coggins, and in another trade they got Bird Hooton. Hooton threw a no-no this year, went to the All-Star game, has 6 complete games, but with a record of 5-6. A nice ERA and WHIP though. 5 pitchers with ERAs below 3. Tom Underwood was in the bullpen. He could be a starter. Carl Morton has delivered a couple nice years as the number 4 starter. You take a number 4 starter who pitches probably half as many innings as your number 1 starter would in our format. He goes 4-0 with a 2.20 ERA and a 107 WHIP. Clyde Wright, though, really had a rough year as the number 2 starter left-hander. As he went up against a bunch of teams who just crushed left-handed pitching, like Boston, like the Yankees. Actually, Baltimore's better against lefties than righties now. So, you got to give this team a lot of credit for being so competitive when A, they didn't exist until 1977. B, they constantly seem to compete while other expansion teams fold. And on the premise of year-to-year improvement, whereas you don't have a farm system to rely on, they seem to draft well in every year. Let's take a look now at the Blue Jays, and we'll look at the 8 players who'll be leaving from the 73 set, and it's going to be 5 hitters and 3 pitchers. And looking at this list, there's some nice sticks in here. Yeah, Hairston too. There's going to be some nice sticks in there, and a nice quality starting pitcher who had a slumping year. That's who's going to be going away. So let's take a look at how they're going to build this team back. And they're going to do it with 7 hitters and 5 pitchers. That's a good mix to build with. It means you're not super short in hitting or pitching. So Milt May had an all-star year with this card as a left-handed catcher with power both ways, and he's better against lefties and righties. What's not to like about him? Kranepool at first base hits .323 with this card. A lot to like about that. You got a decent double play combination. Foley was an Expo. Sutherland was with the Tigers and the Expos, I think. But they're steady, you could say. They're not horrible. Dave McKay's average at third base, but Dave McKay has a history with the Toronto Blue Jays, and one reason he's here. Cleon Jones, probably the last Met of the 4 big Met players to still be here. We had Clendenon, we had Tommy A.G., we still have Cranepool and Cleon Jones from the 69 Mets. Daryl Chaney, a very versatile utility guy, a left-handed hitter who has full-time power with homers against lefties and righties. Pitching, this is a Hooten card that did so well. Still the top of the rotation. You could just go with these 4 guys. You could have Underwood go to the rotation now, replacing Clyde Wright if Clyde's career is over. Doyle Alexander and Carl Morton, who had such a great, he's had a couple great years with this card. This 74 Atlanta pitching staff was dynamite. It's hard to even say that. The 73 Atlanta offense was amazing. The 74 Atlanta pitching staff was amazing. Negro, Capra, Tom House, Max Leon, Carl Morton. That's a good card. It's not amazing, but it's good. And Bob Miller. So let's see what Toronto does with those 8 players. Who are they going to keep, waiver, and retire? Okay, here we are, the 8 players from 1973 for the Blue Jays. They made a deal in the offseason to pick up Rich Coggins with his 73 card. He and Al Bumbry both arrived in Baltimore and both tore it up. Very similar in stature players, both producing similar stats. It's also funny that in A Cup of Coffee in 72, he hits 333 on a terrible Baltimore offensive team, so that puts him on the radar. Bumbry is 337. Coggins is 319. They're both on the Rookie of the Year list. So that's a dynamic fix for a stagnant Baltimore offense. Unfortunately, it doesn't progress for Rich after that. He gets a full season in Baltimore again, but only hits 243. And then he moves on to the Expos. He's part of the Kenny Singleton trade, a Yankee, a White Sox. He comes crashing down by the time he's 25 years old. He's out of the game. So it all happened in 73. Do they want his 74 card? He steals 26 bases. That's pretty cool. And it's Toronto. So for now, I think we're going to put him on the keeper list and expect, hopefully there'll be better stuff than that. But they can say, yeah, we know his average drops tremendously, but he's still, when he gets on base, he's still a threat to steal. And that's something an expansion Blue Jays team could use. So, next up is Jerry Hairston. Always had a stick, a great pinch hitter. That's the son and the father. There we go. Both played in the league. So in 73, he's got a 371 on base. He's going to be hit and miss year to year. He'll hit 283 in 75, 308 in 77, 280 in 81 after missing a bunch of years. 83, he's hitting 294. So, he's all over the place here. He's not what I would call a lock as a guy you have to have, but again, it's Toronto. They don't have a farm system, and so you have a chance to get this guy hitting 283. That's not a bad get. A 283 version of him in 75. So we'll keep him too until we are proven there's better stuff out there. I'm going to write some notes here in the pre-scouting process that there really are just 1 years that these guys are locked into. But that's fine. I mean, that's how Toronto does smart stuff. It's easy if you're we did an elimination of Kansas City. It's easy if you see it's Amos Otis. He's your guy. He's going to have 8 years for you coming up, and you got your choice of which year to pick. But for the Blue Jays, if they can get the player who has one good year in 4 and match it up precisely, they can be a competitive team. That's what they've been doing with this league. All right, next guy, and this is a guy who had a real big impact here is Mike Lum. As soon as they got the 73 Mike Lum card on the roster, they ran it for 4 straight years, and every year he produced. And like you saw in the league, this team went to the playoffs one year. And by the way, they played the Oakland A's in the wild card round. The first 2 games were in Oakland, and they won those. Now think about that historical bend. They're up 2-0, leaving Oakland, heading back to Canada. But the Oakland Dynasty A's rip off the next 3 wins. But that was a pretty scary moment for Oakland to see a Toronto team, almost knock the Dynasty out. That's how competitive the Blue Jays have been. So here's that big year of 73. 568 plate appearances is a career high that year. 294 average, 813 slugging. Unfortunately for Mike Lum, he's not going to get an opportunity to be an everyday player. He'll play half the time in a platoon. He'll turn into a pinch hitter. He'll turn into a guy coming off the bench. The numbers really aren't sparkling anymore. The batting average dips into the 230s. On base does as well. Slugging does as well. This is a really unfortunately sad case of a team that really needs to put this guy on waivers, as sad as it is to say. He's got a card in 74 with 411 plate appearances, so he qualifies for waivers. And this is what you would not conventionally see teams do. If you have a star, one of your stars goes to all-star games you have on your roster for 4 years, you normally just don't dump them on waivers. But Toronto can sort of is forced to do that because they're always on a one-year look-see. I mean, they just don't have the longevity, the long-term consistency, and they can't get too attached to their players beyond 4 years. Next up, Carl Taylor. I think Carl Taylor has been with the Toronto expansion franchise from the 69 beginning, when we started this in 1969 moving forward, as he had a really nice 69 card. Yeah, there we go. So look at this card for the Pirates in 69. 348, 89 OPS, 261 plate appearances, so it's not necessarily a fluke there. And so that's how he started his Toronto tenure. And every year, look at these on-base percentages, 358 with a 70 card. Then he's got a 361 on base with a 72 card and a 363 on base with this card. This, however, is the end of the rope for Carl Taylor. He finished his career as a lifetime 367 on base percentage with 6 years in baseball. So what a cool story it is for Carl Taylor. Pittsburgh, Cardinals, Royals, 71 Pirates. Did he play in that 71 postseason? Always. I mean, a lot of this is just trivia, but I kind of like to see these role players you don't know much about, see if they really did something special in a short sample that we might not normally know about. And it looks like he didn't play in the postseason. So that's a nice ending for Carl Taylor. So Carl Taylor and Mike Lum have been on this franchise for 4 and 6 years respectively, and their time has come. And so again, every off season is a big off season for the Blue Jays. They could be the worst team in the league next year, or they could be competing with the Yankees and Red Sox and Orioles again, like they did in a tough way. It's a hard thing. We don't know until we look at the next set of Strat cards coming up. All right, the next year of Strat cards, which involves the 1977 Toronto Blue Jays. So there you go. So Toronto will begin their existence, if you want to look at it that way. All right, the next player is Ron Woods. Ron Woods, good defensive outfielder with some speed and could take some pitches, never hit very well, never hit for power. He might make a good platoon with, say, Rich Coggins. You know, if they have nice splits. So this card played rather well. The stats, this is another thing. When you look at Baseball Reference, you're getting this picture of it. But the Strat-O-Matic card for this performance I'm highlighting was actually pretty reasonable. Because the 230 average stinks, but the 344 on base is pretty good. And if you've got some speed, he was a B stealer. Stole 12 bases, only got caught 6 times. Drew 56 walks, only struck out 34 times. Was a corner 2 outfielder with a -1 arm. That's how you have to play the system if you're the Blue Jays. You find what tools these guys have that are being rejected by other teams, and you pick the best of the lot and get them to fit in. Unfortunately, in 74, the numbers go even further down, and he only has that year left anyway. With the Expos, can we give him waivers? Let's look for Montreal. Outfielder. Yeah, he's on the extra player list of 1974. So we can give him waivers. That's good. That means he gets to have his card looked at. And I'll tell you, if he's a 2 with a -1 arm and is terrible against righties but okay against lefties, he may get in the league. All right, 3 pitchers beginning with Clyde Wright. He had a nice little run there with the California Angels. And then there was a 3-team trade where Clyde Wright and Splittorff and some of the lefty all moved into their rightful spots. From 66 to 75, so he does have a couple years left. So in 74, he still pitches on 3 days rest, but slight bit of regression. Probably no, it's not in home runs, nor is it hits, nor is it walks. No, what is it? Bad luck? Is it unearned runs? His ERA goes from 368 to 442. So that's what I'm looking at, okay? His hits don't get, well, I guess he gives up, his whip is a $137 from a $135. The homers drop from 26 to 22. Maybe he gives up a lot of doubles and triples. I don't know. He just gave up a lot more runs. But the fact that the whip doesn't get worse and the fact that the homers don't get worse means that I'm not overly concerned with the ERA getting inflated. And the losses, he's a 20-game loser. It's like I'm not excited by 20-game winners, nor am I panicked by 20-game losers. It's not a good indicator of how good the pitcher is. That's mostly a team stat. And he went to the Brewers. The Brewers are going to be a bad team anyway in this timeline. So right now, let's make him a keeper. I mean, a guy, first of all, he's left-handed. That's one reason to keep him. And he pitches on 3 days rest, another reason. You have to wonder, are you pitching a guy on 3 days rest who is really bad and hurting your team? And maybe he should have some more time off? That's the thing that they're going to have to look at if and when they decide to keep that guy. So that's the third keeper. 2 guys left. Eddie Bain. The Bane of, there he is, 73 to 76. Was a twin. 75. Oh, well, the ERA is good. The whip's terrible. Left-hander, though. You know, you've really got to look at every left-hander card. You almost have to completely ignore their stats. You've got to look at the left-handed cards to see, do they have limit home runs? Maybe it's walks and not hits. Maybe it's an opportunistic split one way or the other. I don't know if they make this card in 75 and just 28 in the third innings. That would be the card to get. He can't get waivers. You have to have a card in the first year of next year, which is 74. So without a 74 season, he either goes in retirement or they keep him because they want this 75 card. So let's go take a look now at the 75 original sheet and see if Eddie Bain is with the still with the Twins. And Bain is gone. So he's not there, so we can retire him then. Which leaves us the last guy. Oh, Elias Sosa. I can tell you right now he's a keeper because he has a nice little decade. Elias Sosa was a pretty effective pitcher throughout the 1970s, so that's a good get. All the way to 83. He'll have some up and down years. There he is with a lot of teams. Another good sign. Expansion teams like Toronto are often destinations for guys who travel. Giants, Cardinals, Braves, Dodgers, Oakland, Montreal, Detroit, San Diego. So many teams get them, but so many teams give up on them. Toronto, on the other hand, would say, hey, why don't you just play the whole decade with us the whole time? Let's consider what an entire decade of Sosa would be were we to use this premise. Okay, looking at the big years. Oh, well, there you go. Boom. Does this card exist for the Dodgers in 77? Because this is a clear win for this team. A $1.98 ERA and a 84-cent whip. 4-year contract. No brainer. We got to have this card for the Dodgers in 77. Let's take a look and see if the 77 Dodgers, just one team. Let's come on, Strat. Don't screw the Blue Jays here. There he is. Wow, that's a win for the Blue Jays, and you're also, it's a loss for the Dodgers. So that's a win-win in that case. A traditional major league powerhouse loses one of their effective pitchers. So yeah, this year is the year it's printed with the stats of the previous year. That's why it says 78 right there. So that is a 4-year deal for Sosa, but I'm not done yet. That's a keeper. And look at that, Toronto set. So Toronto doesn't even have to show up for the owners meeting because they could just start their off season this way with 4 keepers, 2 waivers, and 2 retires and not talk to anybody if they don't want to. They're going to take the 74 Coggins, 75 Hairston. They can also take the 75 Clyde Wright card we looked at, which means they can't take anybody else from 75, and the 77 Sosa. Okay, that's what they could do. But let's keep looking at our boy Sosa. So let's say, go back to that premise. When this card runs out of gas, the 81 card can kick in, right? But you also can use the 79 card. In 79, he's got a 196 ERA and a 117 whip. You can run that card all the way through the end of his career to 83. And so you probably don't need these cards at the end when his whip's a $134 or $140. But you have a 4-year contract with a 77 card, and then you tack on 2 more years. 77, 78, 79, 4 years with a 77 card, and then 2 years, or I guess just 1 year, with the 81 card. So that is a pretty good get, or the 79 card. Yeah, so that's a good situation for the Blue Jays. We're just going to have Sosa be the closer until when? Until, let's see, Jerry Garvin show up. He shows up in like 1980. Who else closed out games for the Blue Jays in the early 80s? Mike Barlow, I think, pitched for them. He's not going to make it to Tom Hankey or, all those other Dwayne Ward and all those other great Toronto pitchers of the early 80s. He's not going to make it that far. But Toronto will have a closer for the foreseeable future, which is fantastic if they want to compete in the American League East. So, all things considered, this is an accessible blueprint. You can get this to work. I wish these guys could platoon, Coggins and Hairston. They don't. They're both left-handers. But they can just reprise their roles because Hairston and Coggins were only one-way players in the present season. And Clyde Wright, we talked about Tom Underwood could go in the rotation. You could move Clyde Wright down. have Underwood and Clyde Wright swap spots possibly. So it's a pretty good look for the Toronto Blue Jays, all things considered. And that'll be a wrap for this. I like to take a little deeper dive on these expansion teams because I need to know this stuff when I start doing the all-season work. It's pretty easy to wonder what the Cincinnati Reds are going to do, or the Dodgers, the Yankees, all the traditional playoff teams. It doesn't take much to figure out what they're going to do. We know what Major League Baseball history is. These expansion teams, though, it's you're right on the edge. You're right on the margins, just trying to find productivity when you can. That's all. I hope you appreciate this extended look. Thanks for checking out this. We'll see you next time.